Okay, we're quiet, we're back up here. Okay, trig 3, you thought you knew all of the trig functions, but there's more. Okay, so today we're going to learn about the reciprocal trig functions. Okay, the reciprocal trig functions are cosecant, secant, and cotangent. Okay? So cosecant is abbreviated CSC, cosecant, and it is 1 over the sine of theta. 1 over sine, so it goes with sine. So we know that sine equals, class, what is sine? What over what? Woo! Okay, that scares me a little bit. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Well, not this feeling. So cosecant is going to be hypotenuse over the opposite. Any questions over that? Then secant goes with cosine. Secant is abbreviated SEC, and it's 1 over cosine. So let's just review cosine of theta then. Let's call in somebody. Jenna, what does cosine? Very good. Adjacent over hypotenuse. So secant is hypotenuse over adjacent. Any questions over that? Okay. Cotangent then, of course, goes with tangent. And cotangent is 1 over tangent. So let's just review tangent of theta equals, Lindsay, what is opposite? Oopsie, let's not do it there. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. So cotangent is adjacent over the opposite. Any questions over that? We also need to know something else about cotangent. Cotangent, we talked about tangent being sine over cosine. So cotangent is cosine over sine. We will need to use that today. Any questions over that? We're all good? Okay, so now the hard thing is to remember which one goes with which. Obviously, tangent and cotangent are easy because they both have tangent in them. But cosecant and secant are a little confusing. So here's how you remember. A hint is that reciprocal functions cannot start with the same letter. They can't start with the same letter. So cosecant goes with sine because they have opposite first letters. Secant goes with cosine because they have opposite first letters. You can't have secant and sine because they have the same first letter. Does that make sense? So just remember that little hint. Okay, helps you remember which one goes with which. So then we're just going to do evaluate each expression. So suppose that cosine of theta equals 5 over 13. Find the secant of theta. The secant then is just the reciprocal. So it's 13 over 5. Any questions over that? Same thing here. Sine of theta is negative 5 over 13, and cosecant is the reciprocal. So you stay negative and just flip it. 13 over 5. Any questions over that? We're all good? Okay. Okay, cosecant of 60 degrees. So I'm going to start by graphing 60 degrees. This is 0, This is 90. This is 180. This is 270. This is 360. We're going to graph 60 degrees. So this is 60 degrees, which is nice because 60 degrees is also my reference angle, because my three types of reference angles are 30, 60, or 45, correct? So if I'm starting with 60 degrees, that's just my reference angle. I don't need to add or subtract anything. Any questions? Okay, then we need to write in our ratios. Reagan, what goes over here? Very good. Across from the 60 degree angle is the radical 3. Okay. Then class, what goes here? 1. And what goes here, class? 2. Okay, the hypotenuse is always 2. Opposite the 30 degree angle, there's 30 degree angles right here, is always 1. Any questions? Okay, this is something that we're struggling with. We're not placing our ratios in the right spot, and so you'll get the whole problem wrong. Then we label. This is the opposite. This is the adjacent because it touches the 60 degree angle, makes up part of the 60 degree angle. And this is the hypotenuse because it's the longest side. Then we need to look back and see what cosecant goes with. And cosecant goes with sine. And sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. So cosecant of theta equals hypotenuse over opposite. Write it all down. So cosecant of 60 degrees equals the hypotenuse, which is 2, over the opposite, which is square root 3. Now, sometimes they will rationalize that. And so let me show you what it looks like when we rationalize. You're going to multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 3. 2 times the square root of 3 is 2 square root 3. And radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, which gives me 2 radical 3. Class, what's the square root of 9? 3. So it could be written like this, or they could just leave it like this. Know that they are both the same thing. Any questions over that? Okay, one more thing to do. All students take calculus. We're in this quadrant, so everything, sine, cosine, tangent, therefore also the reciprocal functions, cosecant, secant, and cotangent are all positive. Does that make sense? Any questions over that? In this quadrant, everything is positive. All of them are positive. Because x is positive here, right? X represents the cosine. And y is positive here. So, and y is sine. So everything's positive in that quadrant. Okay? Any questions? And I would like to see you write in the plus so I know that you've actually checked to make sure you know what the sign is. Okay, cotangent of pi over 4. So we first need to convert pi over 4 into degrees. So we use our proportion. We're going to cross multiply. 2 pi times x gives me 2 pi x. And then 360 times pi over 4 gives me 360 over 1 times pi over 4. Just multiply straight across. And you're going to get 2 pi x equals 360 times pi is 360 pi, and 1 times 4 is 4. Then we're going to reduce this, so you're going to get 2 pi x equals 4 can go into 36 9 times, and 4 can go into 0 0 times. So 90 pi. Then you're going to divide by 2 pi. And you're going to x equals, the pi's will cancel out, and you get 45. Any questions over that? We're all good? So now we need to graph 45 degrees. This is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270, and this is 360. So 45 goes right there. I draw in my triangle. Which makes this super nice because it's already a reference angle, right? 45 is one of my reference angles. So I don't even have to find the reference angle here. Okay. Then we're going to do 1 and radical 2 because those are my ratios. This is the opposite. This is the adjacent, and this is the hypotenuse. So cotangent equals 1 over what, class? Cotangent is 1 over what trig function? It goes with tangent, so 1 over tangent. And then, so cotangent then, tangent is opposite over adjacent, so cotangent is adjacent over opposite. So the cotangent of pi over 4 is going to equal the adjacent, which is 1, over the opposite, which is 1. So it'll be 1. We're not done yet because we need to figure out the signs. So again, this is all students take calculus. Here, all of them are positive. So cotangent is positive here. Any questions over that? We're all good? Okay. We're going to cross this out and do something else. Okay, we're going to do secant of 300. So we're going to graph it. We're going to go 0, 90, 270, not 270, 180, 270, and then 360. So 300 is going to be kind of over here. So I'm going to draw my triangle. Connor, what's going to be my reference angle then? 16. How'd you get that? Very good. So 300 minus 360 gives me 60 degrees. So this is a 60-degree angle. Okay, everyone finish that. Find the secant. Okay, so this should have been the square root of 3. This should be 1, and this should be 2. This is the opposite of 60, this is the adjacent of 60, and this is the hypotenuse. Secant goes with cosine. So secant is the hypotenuse over the adjacent. So the secant of 300 equals the hypotenuse, which is 2, over the adjacent, which is 1, so it gives me 2. Then we go with all students take calculus. This is cosine. Since secant and cosine go together, they have the same sign, because it's just the reciprocal of cosine. So if cosine is positive, the reciprocal of it is going to be positive too, so the 2 is positive. Any questions over that? We're all good? Okay, next one. Put a star by this one. This is a little different. Okay, we didn't do this Trig 2, we didn't have these types of problems. Okay? Does anyone know what pi is in degrees? No? Okay, so let's find it. X over 360 equals pi over 2 pi. This can cancel out. So you get x over 360 equals 1 over 2. This should help you. I want it to equal a half. What is half? Right? To make this 1/2, the x should be 180. Because 180 over 360 would be 1/2. So I reduced it. If that doesn't make sense to you, then cross multiply. Get 2x equals 360. Divide 360 by 2. You should get x equals 180. You might want to just memorize that pi is 180. Okay. So this is 0. This would be pi then. We'll go here then. What's in between 0 and pi? 90, so how would I write that in radians? What's in between 0 and pi? Half of a pi, right? Which is pi over 2. Right, 90 is half of 180, correct? So half of pi is 1/2 pi, or pi over 2. What would this be then? How many pi's would I have here? 2 pi's going to be here, right? 1.5 pi's, right? Which is 3 pi over 2. We'll worry more about pi's and radians measure probably on Tuesday. Okay, so this is 180. If I graph it, my angle Notice it's a straight line, right? It's kind of hard to draw a triangle there. Because I usually draw it to the x-axis, right? If it's on the x-axis already, I can't draw it, right? So I put a point there. Here's the issue. If the angle is on the x or y axis, then use the ordered pair. Okay, so if you're going to get 0, 90, 180, 270, or 360, then your angle is going to be on one of the axes, the x-axis or the y-axis. So instead of drawing a triangle, because you can't, then you use this point. Do you guys remember what the radius is in a unit circle? The radius is always what in a unit circle? The radius is always 1. Okay, the radius is always 1. So this is a radius. Okay. So what is the value for x right here? One. Right? We're moving 1 unit to the left, though, so what is it? -1. I'm on the left. How about my y value here? 0. Any questions over that? Let's worry about this one. If it was here, what would my ordered pair here be? 0 for x, and what's my value for y? 1. How about here? X is what here? 1. What is the y value? How about if it's down here on 3 pi over 2? X is, what's the y value? -1. Any questions on how I got any of those points? We're good? Okay, since the radius is always 1, you're always going to have one of them be 1 or -1, and the other one's going to be 0 because it's on the axis. Okay. Then we have to remember that the first one is cosine and the second one is sine. Okay, they're ordered pairs. So cosine, sine is that ordered pair. Okay. Cosine is first because it's first in the alphabet. Sine is second because it's second in the alphabet, just like x and y. So cosecant equals 1 over, let's see, Riley, what's the reciprocal of cosecant? Look at your, above it's, which trig function does it go with? Cosecant goes with what? Sine. Just worry about sine. We don't need to know the opposite of hypotenuse because there's no triangle, right? It's 1 over sine. And what's the sine of pi? Right here we have it, right? What's the sine of pi? 0. Is 0 in the denominator okay? No. This is undefined. So cosecant of pi equals undefined. Any questions over that?
We're that you should know that if you know right away it's like undefined, it's like doing all the work.
Was that a lot of work?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time explaining it, but in the long run, when you do it without all the explanation, it's really not that difficult. Okay? In fact, this is a lot easier than this one would be. Yeah. Okay. You'll get it. There's going to be another one, okay? Next one. Okay, 120. Secant of 120. So let's graph it. Let me write it in. 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. Okay, guys, do it. Do the problem. Okay, Eduardo, what is our reference angle? Okay. So we should have 60 degrees there. Catherine, what goes here? What's my ratio that goes here? Very good. Square root 3. What goes here, Catherine? And what goes here? Very good. Nick, what does secant equal? Hypotenuse over adjacent. It goes with cosine, so it's the adjacent side. So I need this one and this one. So the secant of 120 equals my hypotenuse of 2 over my adjacent of 1, which is 2. Then finally I just need to worry about my sign. Miguel, what's the sign? Negative. And why is it negative? Okay, so sine is positive here. That means cosine, which is the reciprocal of secant. Cosine's negative. So if cosine's negative, then secant's also negative. Any questions over that? We're good? Okay, one more. Does anyone remember what pi over 2 equals? Oh, good. Somebody did. Pi over 2 equals what, class? It should be 90 degrees. If you do not remember, because I just did it right here. Right? Pi over 2 is here, and what goes usually here? 90. So that's the same as 90. Okay? If you don't remember, then do your ratio. Write it down, you guys, everybody. Just to remember how to find it. I'm not going to do the whole work. I'm just going to write out the equation. You would solve that and get x equals 90. So this is 0. This is 90. This is 180. This is 270. This is 360. Or this is 0. This is pi over 2. This is pi. This is 3 pi over 2, and this is 2 pi. Write them both, please. It doesn't take long. So when I graph 90, I am here and here. There's no triangle I can draw. I cannot draw a perpendicular line to the x-axis without drawing the same line again. So I worry about my ordered pairs, my point. Because when I draw my triangle, I draw a perpendicular line to the x-axis to make my triangle. If I draw a perpendicular line, it goes here. If I drew this, then that's not my right triangle at all. Okay? The ordered pair here. Ms. Choi, what's the x value here? 0 for x and 1 for y. Remember, this is cosine, this is sine. Noah Perry. What does cosecant equal? 1 over which trig function? Over sine. So we're going to use this one, 1 over sine. So cosecant of pi over 2 equals 1 over 1, which is 1. Any questions over that? Let's just review. 1 over 0 is undefined. How about 0 over 1? That's 0. Make sure you write that down at the bottom so you remember. You guys get this confused. Even if you think you're amazing and you know it, please write it down. Just in case we get confused. Okay, evaluate each expression to the nearest hundredth. Each angle is given in radians. Okay? So this is when we're going to use our calculators. Okay. So if you have a calculator, get it out. If you do not have a calculator, come grab one of these. Okay. So currently, since it's telling you I'm giving it to you in radians, you need to make sure your calculator is in radians and not degrees. So you usually have a button. Don't worry about ours, I don't think. So, like on this one, it has DEG at the bottom, degrees. Okay. Oh goodness. So you want to change that to degrees, to radians. So you should have a button that asks you about degrees or radians. So you're going to click that and get into it. So yours is this. And so now you're in rad. And it should say rad then, or R. I'm going to try and see. Oh goodness, I don't know how to get this into it. I'm trying to do it in radians. Okay. I think we might just need to, did we get into radians? Yeah. Yes? Okay. Who did not get into radians? Okay, so I don't know how to change my calculators right now into radians. Your phone's having. So get out. Oh, give me a second. What happened to my recording? What tangent go with? Okay, cotangent is 1 over tan of 3. So you're going to enter that into your calculator. 1 divided by the tangent of 3. And it's going to give you a number. You should get negative 7.0. No? 0. 2. Let me see if I did it right. Then hit equals. Let me do on this one. I think it was 19. Let me see. No, it's negative 7. Negative 7.01. If you got 19, I think you're still in degrees and not radians. That's okay. So if that didn't work for you, you couldn't get that, then you're going to enter it this way. You're going to do 1 divided by, this is you, Cole. Okay, 1 divided by 3 tangent, then equals. Okay? So it depends on how your calculator works, if you have to enter it backwards or forwards. Any questions over that? Okay, class, what about secant? What if secant goes with what? Cosine. So it's 1 over the cosine of pi over 2. So again, we're going to enter 1 divided by. Some of us are going to do it just as it's written. Some of you have to go pi divided by 2 cosine. Nope, that did not work for me. Yeah, use your pi button. I'm not sure. Give me a second. 0.76? Okay. I don't think it should be that. I think it should be like 0 or 1. Yes. You should get an error. Let's see how that works on my phone. On this one. Nope. We should get an error. Let's do this. Let's do the cosine of pi over 2. That'll be easier. Okay, cosine of pi over 2. Did you guys get that? You should get 1 over 0 then. Right? What's 1 over 0? Undefined. Okay. So that's why you've got an error when you first did it. It's because you can't divide by 0, so that's undefined. That's what they're saying, it's undefined. Does that make sense? Okay, I couldn't get it to work on your phones. Did anyone have it work on your phone? You never got an error? You got numbers, right? Okay, same with me on my other calculator. So do it like this. Okay, what does cosecant go with? Sine. Sine of negative pi. Okay, so do the sine of negative pi. Don't do 1 divided by.
Wait, why don't you do 1 divided by?
Because it won't work on this one either, I don't think. I think it might be. Yeah. Well, this is 0, right? Because the sine of negative pi is 0. If you plugged in 1 divided by 0, you'll get an error. And so that will be undefined. Any questions over how we got that? Okay, you're going to want to change this back, your calculators back into degrees. Because you usually use them in degrees, just so you know. So don't forget to, when you're done using your homework, to change your radians or your calculators back into degrees.